The lead actress, Alexandra Daddario, plays the role of Margaret, who is an American expatriate living in Tokyo, Japan. During the day, she works as a teacher in a Japanese flight academy, teaching English to prospective flight attendants. And once the sun sets, she goes out with her fellow expatriates drunk and getting into sexual encounters with strangers she meets in the city. Her nightly adventures cause her to show up to work in a daze and disheveled. She's barely making it through her days in this state. On one such day is when Margaret crosses paths with the Yakuza and she falls in love with him, fast and hard. It all starts when Margaret is approached by Kazu as she was reading a book of ukiyo-e erotica and compliments her taste. Eventually, they wind up in a room together. Margaret instructs Kazu to zip-tie her wrists, and Kazu doesn't flinch. This definitely leaves Margaret a little surprised. She expected at least a little bit of a reaction from the man, but he gave none. He smoothly did as directed, and even continued to remove his shirt that revealed a torso covered in Yakuza tattoos. A night like that could not have been easily forgotten. Unusually enough, she breaks her custom of never seeing the same man twice and sees Kazu again. He says she's special because she's difficult to make happy, and he likes a challenge. Things like these that he said won Margaret over. It made her feel special. Within a very short period of time, the two then get into a relationship. But soon enough, Margaret is left shocked and surprised when Kazu says that he is going to get married to someone else. He explains that this is more out of duty than out of love. He convinces her that she is still whom she loves, and so Margaret gives in to him. With time, she opens up to Kazu and confides in him. She tells Kazu that she does not have a family. Her father left when she was a child, and her mother passed away from cancer not too long after. All she has left is a brother who happens to be schizophrenic. She says she came to Japan to be alone. And just like that, as each day passed by, the two only got closer. But of course, Margaret seemed to be way more attached and love-struck than Kazu was. He was, after all, already engaged and to be married. Margaret knew this and still kept letting herself get closer to the man. On the day of graduation for Margaret's students at the flight academy, Kazu asks Margaret to spend the entire day with him in Kyoto. Margaret was a little bit hesitant to skip graduation, but she goes when Kazu says he will not get another day to spend time with her, and so they take the train. Kazu explains the symbolism of being reborn to Margaret, hoping to let her go of her trauma, but she doesn't seem to understand or make sense of it. It leaves her unaffected. On their way back to Tokyo, while Margaret is sleeping, Kazu leaves the train. When Margaret wakes up, she's lost and desperate to find Kazu. They don't ever really give us an explanation of why Kazu left. Of course, there's the fact that he was about to get married, but why did he continue doing this with Margaret for all of these days if he was just going to leave? Eventually, Margaret comes back to work only to find that she has been fired for skipping graduation. She is devastated and absolutely lost. Never would she have imagined taking a day off would lead her to getting fired. She barely made it through with what little she was making from this job. Moreover, her nightly drinking habits cost her a lot too. But this was only the beginning of the worst days for Margaret. Right after losing her job, she is hit with another disappointment when her best friend Ines reveals that she is leaving Japan. All of this leads Margaret down a deeper spiral, and she spends more nights wasting money on drinking and wasting it away in even more sexual encounters with strangers. On one such night, Margaret believes she got lucky when she finally spots Kazu with his family. She follows him into a love hotel. Kazu eventually catches sight of her and reprimands Margaret for following him and tells her that nothing can happen between them. Margaret persists and tells him that she loves him. Surprisingly, for the both of them, he gives in. They sleep together one last time before he sends her away. By now, Margaret had hit rock bottom. When she finally got a chance with Kazu, she had so much hope. But now, she returns home devastated. She gets home and finds an eviction notice plastered on the door to her tiny abode. She didn't even have the time to think any of this through. She had to make money quick. And so, in a rush to make money, she desperately takes a job as a bar hostess for a drunken businessman. She believed all her drunken nights would help her in figuring out how to do this job. But she finds herself feeling unbelievably uncomfortable and leaves the job without getting paid. All of her ways have been lost. She wanders around aimlessly until she takes notice of a strange man following her and asks him to take her to a love hotel. Her situation had truly brought her down to her worst. She strips naked and lays on the bed, making herself completely vulnerable to the stranger. He wasn't even surprised, and barely showed any sense of being human. He ties her up and tells her that he could kill her. Margaret, without even a second to think for herself, begs him to do it. But right on time, Kazu comes into the room to rescue her. He had been following her the entire time. He drags her out of the room and takes her back to safety. This entire experience leaves Margaret feeling very grateful for her life and pushes her to start anew. She decides to leave Tokyo, leaving behind this life she had built for herself in a poor attempt at running away from herself. Margaret then calls Kazu to tell him she now understands the symbolism of the Buddha's womb and finally feels reborn before saying goodbye for good. This was the end of the life of Margaret, who lived in Tokyo. From here on, she's going to work towards reconstructing herself entirely. A well-deserved fresh start, don't you think? And that brings us to the end of the plot of the movie, spending her days numbing herself, either through her work or with alcohol and sex. And much like a lot of similar movies, a series of bad encounters and terrible mistakes leads Margaret to realize some very important things. Majority of the viewers have said that this movie reminded them of Sofia Coppola's Lost in Translation. Though both the films take on different trajectories towards their resolutions, with this movie's simmering eroticism and wandering through the whys and hows of humanity's capacity for love, there are echoes of Mike Nichols' Closer, too. Margaret went to Japan. She did not go there to find herself. She went there to lose herself, to run away from herself, and to be anonymous in everything, from her job to her clothes to her physical desires. Margaret and her friends, they are a group of expats who drink away their loneliness and isolate themselves in their group of 3. They worked so hard to close themselves off to the rest of the world that they found it difficult to accommodate it when one of them got a girlfriend. Something very similar can be seen with Kazu as well. He said he's getting married out of duty and not love. Even he was isolated inside the structures and rituals of his gangster sect. Kazu and Margaret feel alive with each other, but they are both imprisoned by their loneliness. They are both living on stolen moments. And finally, the city of Tokyo in itself, it's a lonely place to be. It is always so crowded, people everywhere, but no one's ever got enough time to even say a proper goodbye or to look out for strangers. The movie does an excellent job at portraying how lonely such a big, bustling city can make one feel.